We're back after a brief intermission from NBA Crunch Time. Keith, Devin, and myself are here for some NFL Showdown, and we have the Dallas Cowboys with Cooper Rush against the Minnesota Vikings. So we're about to bring 50 minutes of Cooper Rush conversation coming at you. Keith, it's been a while. Keith, how are you?
Yeah, long time no talk, right?
It's
20-minute break or whatever we had there.
We got the wrench we kind of thought would be thrown in there. I was kind of hoping Dak would play, honestly, but now we have this. So I think you could throw a lot of data out the window after Dak was officially ruled out. So now it gets, you go from a high-powered Cowboys offense to I don't know, but you made a great point that who won football games today? Who did we have?
I believe Mike White has a win under his belt today, and looks like Trevor Siemian has sealed the deal on the Bucks. So a couple backup quarterbacks came in and got the job done. So who's to say Cooper Rush can't do it tonight?
Yeah, the Jets knocked off the 5-2 Bengals, and of course the Titans, who are the 1 seed in the AFC. I have people texting me, "Wow, Titans are the 1 seed." I give them that shrug emoji. Like I don't know. I don't know how we're here, but we're here. So the main thing is with Cooper Rush is FanDuel priced him up to $10K. So shout out to who's doing the algos over there, but I believe he's still $6K on DraftKings. He's priced as the backup quarterback. So there's a huge difference, right from the get-go.
Yep, for sure. I think he's got to be in play. I did look into the Vikings defense a little bit in our intermission there. They are pretty good against the pass this year. According to DVOA, where was it? Vikings are 3rd in DVOA against the pass. They're 24th against the rush. So I don't know. I think we're going to see Dallas come out and try to keep it on the ground at first, at least quite a bit, just to keep them in the game. So I'm going to have more interest in Zeke and even Tony Pollard, I think. But Cooper Rush, the price tag on DraftKings, I don't know how many people are going to feel comfortable playing him. If we're going to get him at low ownership, I'll probably jam in quite a bit here as I'm finalizing these lineups.
Yeah, and we don't have an ownership projection for him right now, but it's anyone's guess right now. And FanDuel, you talk about FanDuel when you deal with raw points, and typically is one of the two quarterbacks or both quarterbacks usually soak up 70-75% of the ownership. Ball up, I don't know, off the top of my head, I'm just BSing here, but a lot, 2/3 of the ownership on FanDuel. But Cooper Rush doesn't strike me as a raw points guy, but I mean, there's an outcome, right? I don't know. I mean, he fits on DK quite a bit. I know FanDuel's raw points and he's a quarterback, but I feel like he'll probably be. God, I would think he'd be owned slightly more on DraftKings just with the price. Would you think, or would you be on the other end of that discussion?
No, I think that's right. I mean, just $6K on DraftKings. I mean, that's where like Pollard is priced. We're talking about like all 4 main wide receivers are priced above him. Like KJ Osborne is in the same range. I mean, you're talking about raw points from a quarterback versus raw points from a backup running back or a 3rd wide receiver. He may not be a great raw points play for a quarterback, but from a showdown when we're positionless, that's a different conversation. I think raw points, he's right up there. I mean, he probably doesn't outscore Dalvin Cook, but if we're talking about him in the same conversation with KJ Osborne and Tony Pollard, he's very much in the conversation to lead them in raw points.
No, I totally agree. Just some housekeeping stuff here. Couple plugs. BetMGM. We have good promo. I mean, we got some good promos still. Use bonus code GRINDERSBET. That's GRINDERSBET over there on BetMGM. Bet $10 to get $200 instantly on BetMGM if your team scores a touchdown. Of course, Rotogrinders Premium. You know what we're about. Ton of content, great tools, a lot of customizable options there with a ton of different sports happening right now. You can mix and match quite a bit. And of course, like and subscribe to Rotogrinders. Check out rotogrinders.com for daily strategy shows that'll help you with FanDuel and DraftKings. And of course, there are free shows as well. And give a like to our podcast feed, Rotogrinders podcast feed for daily fantasy football. Have a lot of great audio stuff here. I had Keith on the Food for Thought with filling in for the Chief a couple weeks ago, and it was a blast to kind of have that barbershop-ish feel. Tuesday, like hit the reset button talk. Anything to get your mind off Cooper Rush, I suppose. So looking forward to that one with the Chief. But yeah, so I'm with you. I think he'll be higher owned on DK. So I guess we can just talk about Kirk Cousins, right? Has that terrible primetime stigma of how bad he is in primetime games. I'm going to find the record somewhere. Dallas defense improved for sure. Obviously, my gut says unless they get Zeke going, which they are probably going to lean on both running backs heavily, but they still might have issues sustaining drives. So there just could be some very generous field position for this Vikings team here. What do you think about Kirk Cousins tonight in this game? Now that we know Dak Prescott's not on the other side, like, are you actually upset about that because there is less of a chance of a trailing shootout type of game script trying to catch up to Dak Prescott and company? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I had an early lean this week on this as being a Dalvin Cook game. In fact, over on Scores and Odds, I put up Dalvin Cook's over on his rushing yards on like Thursday, I think it was, with the thought that his prop was at like 80.5. And that's when Dak popped up on the injury report. I'm like, I like the over on his rushing yards, even if Dak plays. If Dak plays, like now you're talking about a favorite running back with an 80-yard prop, like that's going to be a smash. Turns out that's exactly what happened. Dalvin Cook rushing prop now sitting at 89.5. So I got it at 80.5. Beat the line move there before the Dak stuff really got steamed up, and it looked like he was going to miss for sure. So this has been a Dalvin Cook game for me all week. That's where I sit still. Trayvon Diggs is legitimate on the outside, I think, for the Cowboys. I mean, he's in contention for player of the year. Just seems like he has a pick six every game that they play. I mean, he's probably going to follow Justin Jefferson around. I don't know that he is shadowed all year, but just a ton of respect for Trayvon Diggs and the leap that he's made here in year two. So I think they just feed Dalvin Cook in this game. Another thing that I look at whenever we deal with like these situations with injuries and starting quarterbacks being out is what did the line do? What did Vegas do? Game opened at 52 for the total, and the Cowboys favored by 2.5. With Dak officially ruled out, we have the total down to 49, with the Vikings being 4-point favorites currently. So, I mean, now we're talking about Dalvin Cook as a home favored running back. I'm gonna jam in a lot more Dalvin Cook than I am Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, we have him projected. You can see here on the lineup HQ page on DraftKings at 20% at captain. A little surprised it's not a little more. He could come in a little bit higher. Is your stance so strong on it? You don't care if he's 20-25%? Are you like game script wise? You make total sense. Of course, this is the NFL. We just talked about two guys we never really heard of winning football games today, but your theory makes sense. I like it. I like the game flow call, the Dalvin Cook call. Trayvon Diggs on the outside. Maybe we see some more design stuff for Dalvin Cook. How concerned are you with what the ownership might end up being at Cook, or don't you care?
Yeah, I mean, it's a situation. The ownership is creeping high enough. You pretty much have to lock him in if you hope to get any leverage on Cook. The one thing I will say is I don't mind playing Cousins with Cook because Cook does catch screen passes in that out of the backfield. He even has a couple of receiving touchdowns already, I think, this year. He definitely has some in his career. He doesn't have one this year, but definitely in his career. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. And it's showdown, right? Like anything can happen. We don't care as much about that correlation. So I will have plenty of Cousins in there with Cook as well. But yeah, I mean, Cook's ownership is getting away from us a bit. So it's almost a lock situation on Cook at that ownership.
All right. So we talked about Cook. Let's talk about the running back situation as a whole. Let me see. What am I doing here? There we go. So he's Dalvin projected 52% here. At flex, Zeke coming in 33%, Pollard. And of course, you have Madison, who is the handcuff of Dalvin Cook. And a couple other guys who probably won't be relevant. No offense, CJ Ham and Keeney down here. But you know what? I think you can make a case for Zeke. I think that's generous ownership on Zeke. All things considered, that there's a chance this game might be uglier. I know Vikings at home, Dallas maybe have trouble sustaining drives. But I'm a multi-enter showdown guy typically, and I like to build all of these different game script possibilities. And I do think there's one where maybe that offensive line is still good. I don't care if Dak's in or out. Of course, we saw some struggles last year when Dak was out, but also Zeke wasn't. The rumors and the socials and everything about Zeke being in great shape wasn't just smoke this offseason. He actually looked really damn good. So I think there is an outcome where Zeke is the guy, and of course, projections disagree with me here, but I'll take the gamble on the difference in ownership. So I don't mind some Zeke, captain teams. I mean, this right here, you're looking at this on my screen here, almost 8% Zeke captain kind of has me licking my chops here. So I think there is an outcome where I'm not going to say Dallas plays with the lead the whole game, but it's close, and Zeke, isn't more scripted out than he's in kind of thing. So I really like this potential fairly low owned on Zeke as everyone's going toward Dalvin, and rightfully so, that this is really intriguing to me. How are you handling Zeke? Are you putting him and Dalvin Cook lines together and reaching for value somewhere else?
I am. Yep. I think like on a main slate and things like that, like we generally try to avoid opposing running backs. These are two running backs who are involved in the passing game. They're game script independent for the most part. We'll get into Tony Pollard, who I might like even more than Zeke, but I'm with you. Like, it's a 4-point spread still, even with the backup quarterback in there. So we're not expecting a blowout here. The Cowboys have a very, very capable run game. I mentioned the Vikings defense struggles against the run versus compared to the pass. I mean, if I was coaching the Cowboys, that's what I would just come out and pound the ball to Zeke and hope to keep the game close that way. So I definitely like that call. And if it's within a score, certainly, probably even 2 scores, like they're just going to keep running Zeke. Like they're going to try to hide Cooper Rush as much as they can until the game. If it does get out of hand, maybe they try to turn him loose a little bit to catch up. But I think certainly for at least the first half, he's just going to turn around and hand it off to Zeke and Pollard for the majority of it.
Okay. I you know what? I think there's an outcome. I'm still with you on the Cook-ish game script, but I think especially after looking at that sub 10% captain ownership for Zeke, I like that idea as well. Talk to me about Tony Pollard. What kind of game script, theories does he fit in, or is he kind of neutral today, in your opinion?
He's neutral. He's involved in every game script. We've seen him work him in there with Zeke, even when they're ahead. So last year he was more of a change of pace back where they would use him more if they were trailing out of the backfield as a pass catcher. He's working in on early downs. I can pull up the rushing share here, but he's gotten a significant chunk of the rushing share this year, averaging 10 carries a game. So, I mean, he's not a guy that is just like a change of pace, third down back. He comes in there and he gets legitimate carries. So in that situation, I'm at having lower ownership and a much lower price tag than Zeke. I'm going to play plenty of Pollard, hoping that he's the one that gets the touches down near the goal line. I think the other upside of that is he is still used in that pass catching role. If the game does get out of hand, Pollard is the guy for me that they lean to first more than Zeke. Zeke will still see the field in that scenario. It just seems like when they do call like the dump offs and things like that, that Pollard is the one that tends to get more of those. So I think Pollard has upside in both game scripts, touchdown equity if they're in the game and it's close, pass catching upside if the game gets away from them and they're in a trailing script. So Pollard is one of my absolute favorite plays on the slate.
He's cheap. 42 on DK, 50. What is he? Is that right? That can't be right. Yeah, Pollard's 54 on DK.
Yes.
Cheap, affordable, decent ownership. So you actually had Zeke shares on main slate. We're talking on one of our shows in the New England game. That's right. He had 9 targets. Was that an anomaly, or of course, now you throw in a different quarterback, so it's even harder to draw conclusions here. So talk to me about that 9 target game. Can you bank on that or no?
I don't think you can bank on 9. He's typically in that 3 range. That's probably more to the outcome that you expect from Zeke. I'd put Pollard just slightly ahead of that 4 or 5 targets. It looks like 3 or 4 is more his range. So, I mean, this is kind of a split backfield. Like, you think of Zeke being like ahead and Pollard then being the one that spells. I think today they could both receive, I don't know, 20 touches each almost. Probably not that high for Pollard. He like 20 touches for Zeke, 15 per Pollard, something like that is totally within the range of outcomes.
So under what rational circumstance would you play Alexander Madison? I mean, do you just play him in a couple darts without Dalvin Cook and hope the unthinkable unfortunately would happen or something like that? Or like, is there any outcome where you put Madison in a Dalvin Cook team tonight?
I mean, I guess if Cooper Rush goes out there and throws 3 picks that are returned to the house and the game is an absolute one-sided blowout, maybe they sit Dalvin Cook down. But if the game is close at all, the Vikings have clearly demonstrated when Cook is healthy, he's the guy. Like, Madison is capable, but if you look at their game last week against Carolina, Dalvin Cook was on the field for 29 rushing attempts, got 2 targets in that game. And there were concerns that his ankle was still bothering him. Now he's had the bye. I mean, 2 full weeks off when you include the bye week in there. Dalvin Cook should be full and ready to go. I don't know that Madison has a role when Cook is out there at full strength. So, I'd play it for that scenario where Cook gets injured. I wouldn't play Cook and Madison together, I don't think. I guess there's a scenario where Cook runs for 2 touchdowns and doesn't play the fourth quarter, and Madison gets there with 10 fourth quarter touches. But I'm not playing for something like that. I think Dallas, I mean, they play pretty conservative. I think Dallas stays in this game for the most part. They lean on their talented defense. I don't think Madison has much of a role. The price tag is attractive, though. I'll give you that.
Yeah. That system is just a plug and play. We're riding with an RB1 because when Cook's out, they don't miss a beat. They design the same stuff up for Madison, and he's a talented runner. I mean, he's probably a top 20 back in the league. Like, if he had a full season as like RB1 ish, I mean, we'd be talking about a low end RB1 probably, right? So they really don't. It's just whoever's in there is in there typically. So I think I agree with you. Sure, there's an outcome. It's super unlikely. I think that Madison would be optimal or win you money with Dalvin Cook in the same lineup. Just doesn't seem, seem like a reasonable outcome. But we had to discuss it. So wide receivers, okay. The Vikings are cool because there's a small target tree. There's some condensed volume. It just, everybody says Thielen vultures the touchdowns and Jefferson does all the work. It doesn't always happen like that, although it does seem, it seems like it happens that way on occasion. So the target market share is pretty close with the Minnesota Vikings. Jefferson has 26% of it, and Thielen has 21% of it. Then you have KJ Osborne, 15%, and Conklin, who really is coming into his own and is viable in some lineups today, by the way, Tyler Conklin. So you kind of know where the ball's going, of course, whatever they end up designing for Dalvin Cook or whoever's in the backfield as well. So while the target market share between Jefferson and Thielen is close, it's kind of not close with air yards. Jefferson is the guy they're going to push the ball down the field with. And, if you're making that naked eye assumption, the stats back it up. Jefferson has a 42% of the air yard market share opposed to Adam Thielen's 27%. Trayvon Diggs plays a lot on the, I don't know if he's going to do any shadowing tonight. I figured that might be a question coming in. But typically he plays on the right side of Dallas's field, which means whoever's on the left side of the Minnesota formation would be his assignment. But the Vikings also do a good job of mixing it up too. So interesting dynamic here. I guess my first question on that, we'll start with the Minnesota side, is, are there builds where you play both of these receivers? Like the contrarian build would be, well, they air it out, right? And go Jefferson, Thielen, Kirk Cousins, which it seems frightening, but I guess there's an outcome. But it's tough to make work. So talk to me about the Vikings receivers tonight.
Yeah, there's an outcome. It's not anything that I'm building for. I've already said that Dalvin Cook is my favorite play on the slate. I'm going to have him in basically every lineup. That means that I have to choose between Jefferson or Thielen if I'm going to play them, because I can't fit Cook, Jefferson, and Thielen in there. That just doesn't work. So I'll be choosing between the two. Trevon Diggs, I think, does matter, but I don't see a situation where he just completely follows Justin Jefferson around the field. Jefferson, as you mentioned, he'll line up in the slot, he'll line up outside. They move Jefferson all over the formation. So I'm not worried about Diggs following him around the field and just lining up wherever Jefferson is. I think Jefferson is more talented than Thielen. I think he has bigger playability. So Jefferson is the guy I'm going to lean to over Thielen. I'm going to be significantly under the field on Thielen and going to try to get over on Jefferson. That's just banking on talent and who I think the better receiver is.
I like it. Thielen just has these splash games. You can see he has a much lower floor than Jefferson does. I mean, a couple duds, Cleveland, nothing against Detroit either. Then he had a huge game against Carolina. But the price differentials, I mean, like, you're paying for a higher floor with Jefferson and higher upside as well. So, I'm with you. I think it's one or the other in this one based upon your lineup construction, how much salary you have. I can't argue with you if you want to be different and play both. My lean on game script is there's going to be too many Dalvin Cook opportunities for both of them to hit value as well. So I think I agree with you there. Now we get to the fun stuff with like KJ Osborne, right? Really fun beginning of the season to Osborne. Had a couple weeks with minimal targets, but he's seen pretty steady work for the most part. No D.D. Westbrook tonight, who is out, by the way. Obviously, you're looking at the screen here on Lineup HQ right here on Rotogrinders, and you see super low floor, but I mean, at his price, 14 points in week 1, 20 in week 2, and then against Carolina, he also had 19. Decent amount of targets, but he is clearly the third fiddle on this team in the wide receiver group. But just so there are some of those numbers, and we read off some of the air yard market share and target market share numbers, and Osborne is the third fiddle. So now, I mean, you want to factor in, if you want to factor Diggs into the equation here, maybe Kirk Cousins identifies where Diggs is and doesn't look that way. And I don't think Diggs is going to spend much time on Osborne now. I really don't. Although Osborne's floor is still very scary, but I am intrigued with KJ Osborne in some of these lineup builds tonight. What's your take on KJ Osborne, Keith?
Yeah, I think he makes for a fine value play. I will certainly be mixing him in. Runs out of the slot quite a bit, so I agree. There's no chance Diggs follows him into the slot, I don't think. So he can definitely get away from him if Diggs is locking up one of the other guys. Maybe it's Osborne who gets loose a couple of times. I'll certainly mix him in.
Okay, that's fair. There's probably nobody else really worth talking about in Minnesota at the receiver position. Of course, you see Smith Marset down here, who has nothing in the game log. So what do we do with these Cowboys receivers now? Since we both kind of think Cooper Rush won't be unleashed, despite some other not so upper tier talented quarterbacks getting some wins today. I just can't see Cooper Rush going bonkers. So, that being said, does he latch on to anybody here? Does he latch on to CeeDee Lamb, or does he latch on to Cooper? We'll talk about some tight ends. Bad quarterbacks just seem to love
there you go.
wide receiver ones or the big boys. Or are we going to get captain check down with Tony Pollard and Zeke? Maybe we see a bunch of Zeke targets with that no A dot and the ball just hanging around the line of scrimmage. I mean, there's so much volatility and so many variables into play right now, the Dallas Cowboys, that who do you pick out of these receivers? It's tough. Like, if you're not multi-entering tonight, best of luck. Best of luck.
Yeah, I mean, Lamb is too expensive for Cooper Rush being his quarterback, in my opinion. It's going to be very difficult for him to pay that off. For one, I don't think the volume is going to be there. And for two, I don't think that Cooper Rush is talented enough to get him the ball enough times to where he's going to pay off that price tag. I was going to consider it if Lamb was going to get super low ownership. we currently have him projected for 34. I don't know that that's looks like I'm refreshing here just to make sure I have the latest to see if there's an ownership number in there for Rush. Okay, it does. We have Rush in there for 44 now. So that did bring Lambs down, ownership down to 30%. That's still too much for me. If it was going to be in that 10 to 15 range, I might have taken some shots. At that price tag, I don't think there's enough volume. It's going to be hard for him to pay it off. I have more interest in Cooper, but honestly, I'm not sure that I have a ton of interest in him either. I really think that you could see a ton of carries from Zeke and Pollard. It's their strength with a backup quarterback in there. I'll play a little bit of Cooper. I'll probably full fade Lamb. I'd have more interest in the tight ends, I think, just because you do see backup quarterbacks kind of look at them as like a safety valve type of thing when they get thrown into the fire like this. So I'm pretty much off Lamb and Cooper both.
Yeah, totally understandable too. And based on context clues here, I feel like you're screaming 4-2-5-1 builds at me with where your head was at today in terms of Vikings. Is that kind of where you kept landing on if you're fading, two of these?
I don't have any 5-1 Vikings. I think it's a close game. I'm just going to be extremely running back heavy in my build.
Okay, fair, very fair. Cedric Wilson still carrying 16%. I mean, he's cheap. Does he lock on the slot guy if they're trailing? I don't know. I think where the discussion gets interesting is tight end, because even with Dak, of course, Dalton Schultz having a hell of a year. But Blake Jarwin is still very capable. You see this consistent work that Dak has just been feeding Dalton Schultz. And price-wise, I mean, you're looking at Schultz at 66, which is still fair. Jarwin at 2K, I do really like Jarwin, despite him projected being under. I actually kind of like Jarwin more with Cooper Rush, I think, in there, because like they don't want to push the ball down the field, right? Jarwin's still seeing a decent amount of snaps. I mean, who am I to say Jarwin doesn't go like 4 for 45 and he's fine like at 2K? So I think the tight end discussion is very interesting, and it's a lot to do with it is a price thing. And then on the flip side, Tyler Conklin, who has been a little up and down, but really, has a couple of these splash games, 20 points against Seattle, he had 10 against Carolina. So he is very serviceable, decent amount of work for this kind of run heavy offense for Tyler Conklin, kind of coming out of the blue here this season. So tight ends, I mean, talk to me here. What's on your mind here? Are you buying some of the tight end action tonight?
Yeah, I'm definitely buying tight ends. You briefly touched on Cedric Wilson too. With backup quarterbacks and wide receivers down the depth chart, like they've worked quite a bit together on the second team reps and things like that. So I do have a good amount of interest in Cedric Wilson. Just wanted to get that out there. Mm-hmm. But yes, ton of interest in these tight ends as well. I just don't think they're going to be taking deep shots down the field. They're gonna play this conservative, trying to protect Cooper Rush. So. And Blake Jarwin, that price tag looks very nice. He's much lower owned than Dalton Schultz. I'll play Dalton Schultz as well. I also like him, but Jarwin is going to be on the field. He's going to be running routes. I think Blake Jarwin is the best value play on the slate.
Ooh, love it. Best value play on the slate.
Well, if you consider Pollard a value play, I'll go Pollard over him. But as far as like a pure punt play, like Jarwin is right there as the top one for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like the tight ends in this game quite a bit, just based on what we know about Cooper Rush and how we think the philosophy is going to go here. And it sounds like we're kind of on a similar wavelength there. You said you looked into the Vikings defense a little bit, and we have both defenses projected to. I got to refresh mine. This might be hold on, give me 1 second here. We had 13% before the Cooper Rush news. Let me see how that affected the defensive projections here, and knocked it down a little bit. And that's what I was kind of anticipating here. They're cheap enough. We talk about, the defense conversation usually comes up where they're priced up. Somebody's priced up. But now with Dak, a true game time decision, nobody knew, and DK didn't do anything with the Vikings defense. If this news dropped before they created the lobby, the slate a couple days ago, or whenever they created the Sunday night slate, I mean, the Vikings would probably be like 6,500 or something. But that's a pretty generous ownership projections. And I know there's a lot less correlating in showdown slates, but if you think it's a running back heavy game and kind of more of a slugfest, I mean, there's always chance for a disaster with Cooper Rush behind center or any backup quarterback for that reason. So I'm interested. I'm interested in Minnesota's defense. I think they come in a little bit higher if I had to guess too.
I think they will come in a little bit higher owned, but at that price tag, even though I don't think that it's going to be a super pass heavy game, you're certainly going to get at least 20 Cooper Rush dropbacks, right? And I mean that can result in plenty of interceptions. Turnovers are what we're looking for. Anytime you have a backup quarterback in there, I think they're definitely more prone to the turnovers. So lots of interest in the Vikings, D.
Okay. Any scenario where you're interested in Dallas, D? I mean, if you're playing some Zeke and Pollard up top or a lot of that, like, are you going to try to mix some Dallas D in?
Where they fit in, sure. It's not, I mean, I'm definitely not like targeting them. If I need an extra value play and I have like a Zeke Pollard build or something where the Minnesota D might not make sense in that, that's where I would use the Dallas D.
Just feels like a kicker is going to pop up optimal tonight. It just feels like that kind of game. It might be in the cards. I just feel it's going to be kind of ugly. Some drives are going to stall out in between the red zone and in between the 50. And we have two very capable kickers. Obviously, Greg the Leg, right? Greg the Leg. If two Gregs and Greg Joseph, how many Gregs can you play tonight, Keith?
You can play both of them. I mean, we're in a dome, so don't have to worry about any of the weather conditions or anything like that. Always favor the kickers that are in the dome. Definitely in play. Totals come down below 50, so yep, I'll have some.
Kickers are definitely kind of a crapshoot, but they pop up optimally more than, I mean, nobody wants to play kickers, right? At all. Everyone wants to shoot out. These should be two high-powered offenses, but we're just not getting that tonight. Let's do a build quick, and then we'll jump into some questions from the chat. Got about 8:03 p.m. Eastern here. Kickoff is now 8:20. 8:20 we're gonna lock. So you know what? You said you had no 5-1s. I'm assuming you have some 4-2s, but some 3-3s with some of the value pieces here. So I know you're big on Dalvin Cook. Let me bring up this lineup preview box we have here. And I know this is a free show tonight, so we legally, I think, cannot fill in all of these slots here in one of our mock builds. But we can. All right, thanks. Devin whispered in my ear and said correct. But we can give you all but one, and you can use your imagination on how to fill out the rest of the puzzle here. Let's make a Dalvin Cook team. I know that's where your head's at. Strong lean. Keith has the over on the scores and odds prop. Check him out on scoresandodds.com. Little plug here. Our team is awesome over there, putting out bets for pretty much every slate every day. NBA bets, NFL, some World Series stuff over the last couple of days. So it's been a lot of fun. So let's put Dalvin Cook in here, captain. Right? Let's build a Dalvin Cook team, and I'm super curious. You have a lot of hard stances tonight, it sounds like. So I'm curious for you to talk me through, like, I don't know. You want to do an optimal type build or more of a large field one? I'll give you the reins to the ship here.
I mean, I generally lean. I like when we do 3 max. Like, you can get a little bit weird with 3 max, but you still lean like sort of optimal. I think you just need to make a pivot or two to where you're not duplicated a ton. So how does that sound? Like something for a 3 entry max?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. Okay, so we're starting with Dalvin Cook here. We talked a lot about Pollard and Zeke. Are one of those two going to be your next kind of look?
So I'm going to say at least one of those two are going to be in this lineup for sure. I mentioned the lower ownership on Pollard, the lower price tag. Like, Tony Pollard is the guy that found a lot of that I found a lot in my build. So let's go ahead and get Pollard in there.
All right.
I think if the game does happen to get away from Dallas, he's still involved, and just love the price tag on him.
Agreed. He's been in the mix all season, really. That probably lit a little bit more of a fire under Zeke to kind of get to where he needs to go, because Pollard has some zip, man. I mean, he has a burst. Yeah. So really, Dallas, like, this is their strength. Like you said, the offensive line is still the offensive line. And I'm with you on a lot of the takes you talked about here. That being said, I got to get your opinion on Cooper Rush, who Why is it saying Justin Jefferson at quarterback? He doesn't play quarterback. Here we go. He's projected at 44%. How much does that matter for you tonight with the 6K price tag?
I mean, it certainly matters because what's the floor of pass attempts from Cooper Rush tonight? 18? Like the absolute worst case scenario. I mean,
yeah, that's fair. Something like that.
I don't know. I think that he ends up in the optimal lineup more often than he doesn't.
On DraftKings. Yep. FanDuel 10K. I don't know. But I'm with you. I think it's a price thing, and you can get some of these like higher volume type guys in. So want to put him in there? Is that cool with you?
Yeah. Yep. I think so.
All right. So you put him in there. You have 3 slots left, and you have about 8,100 and change, 8,100 left over per slot here. I'm assuming you're going to pick a Vikings receiver. So
yeah. So I think from this point, you need to decide if you are okay fading Cousins and leaning receiver, because I don't think we can fit. I mean, we'd maybe Thielen and Cousins might fit in there. I can do that real quick, but I prefer Jefferson and then to fade Cousins, to be honest. Yeah, actually, you could fit Cousins and Thielen in there pretty easily if you prefer that. Like if you want to play the ownership game with Thielen and you think he catches 2 touchdowns tonight, that certainly works with this build, even with Cook up at captain, I think. But with Cook at captain, I'm playing for Cook to get most of the touchdowns. That means I want volume and yards from Jefferson. So I think Jefferson is the guy that we plug in there. We still have plenty of money to make this work with Jefferson.
Yeah, you can leave money on the table today, for sure. Anytime you have a QB1 who's supposed to be who's priced as a backup, you're gonna have some opportunity to leave some cash on the table in your lineup construction. There, you can see you have about 7,200 left over here for 2 slots here. And there's just so many options. We talked about the tight ends. I feel like we'd be dropping the ball if we didn't put a tight end in here, but also a lineup without a quarterback in it is interesting. I mean, you're heavy on running backs tonight. I'm sure in your builds you will have lineups without either Cousins or, if Cook steals a touchdown equity, sure, right, he'll get there and Kirk probably won't. So how comfortable or uncomfortable are you with excluding quarterbacks generally and like opposed to tonight where things have really changed?
Generally, I mean, fading one quarterback is always on the table, I think. Mm-hmm. Just with the heavy game script, I don't know. The salary is the thing that makes it difficult because it's pretty easy to get, even with the build that we've got here with the highest price wide receiver, the highest price running back, we could still fit Kirk Cousins in this lineup if we wanted to. Very
good.
Easily.
We should do that. We should do that for a 3 max, I think. And just see so they have 3,700 left. You can see this lineup with 1 slot remaining. Yep. And that gives you the highest projected quarterback. It gives you the highest projected running back. It gives you the Minnesota wide receiver 1 who still has his quarterback, and you're pairing them together. I mean, this is it's interesting. It's interesting, but this is a classic. Like Dalvin gets you ahead, Jefferson gets volume, captain check down with Tony Pollard. They're trailing, right? And you still have 3,700 left to play with. So it makes sense, right? And you can see as I'm scrolling down the list here, we talked about how many Gregs you could play. Well, you could play one of them with this build. You could play a defense with this build and leave some money. You could play Jarwin, who we both like the tight ends here. There are 3 great options right there amongst some other ones down here too.
Yeah. So with as much chalk as we have in this lineup, I would say even in 3 max, you're going to be duped if you plug in the kicker to this lineup. So I would definitely look at saving some money. Jarwin would be a great option on that. Can't quite fit Cedric Wilson. If you wanted to play that scenario for Madison gets 4th quarter run in a blowout type scenario, that would fit in this lineup.
Yep.
Or either of the defenses also would work here, but definitely several different options. But when you play a lot of popular plays, you definitely want to think about leaving some money just to differentiate yourself a little bit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And even if you plug in Thielen, who is 1,600 less than Jefferson, and that would give you 47.53. Then you can even get creative. Like if you take Jefferson out of here, right, and you say, okay, maybe it's the Thielen game, maybe maybe Diggs spend some more time over there. I mean, then you have even some more. I mean, you could leave even more money on the table then. I mean, you could go, so you just miss on Pollard. You can get Osborne, Conklin, Cedric Wilson, either of the Gregs. You can get a defense and leave a couple grand on the table. I don't mind that. Cooper Rush could throw the pick six and still be optimal, right, Keith? We've seen it. Or you can go
Definitely.
Jarwin. I think there's a wide range of outcomes when you get from 5K with Osborne and you go all the way down to 2K. We're talking 7 total projected points here. From Osborne's projected a little over 9.5, and Jarwin's projected about 3. So range of outcomes, man. You tell me. You leave some money on the table. It's going to be a fun one.
Yep, definitely. I usually, when I build for Showdown, I like to exclude same team running backs. I'd make a group for Zeke and Pollard and only play one of them. Today, I think there's a little bit of a unique situation. So when I said there's going to be at least one of those guys in this lineup, I do have some lineups that play Pollard and Zeke together with Cooper Rush even. It's definitely going to differentiate you more. A lot of people aren't going to do that, but I could see a scenario in this game where Dallas literally hands the ball to each of them 15 times and just tries to hide Cooper Rush for as long as they can. If the game starts to get away from them, you get both of them involved in the passing game as well. So I could see a scenario where Zeke and Pollard are optimal in the lineup together today.
So can I, and as time goes on, there are less bell cow running backs. That term is extinct anymore even. And now you're rolling out a backup quarterback who's probably going to check down quite a bit, and a team that likes to involve Tony Pollard as it is. So I totally agree with you there as well. Let's go to some YouTube chat questions. 8:13 Eastern here, about 7 minutes before lock. Okay, Cooper Rush is the quarterback for Dallas. I saw that all the way up top. If the Vikings win easy, you need Dalvin. I think you agree with that.
100% agree with that. Yep,
yeah,
definitely.
probably need him regardless in most builds tonight.
I think you said there isn't any bell cow running backs. If there is one, his name's Dalvin Cook.
It's either Dalvin or Derek, right? That's about it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Can we go to defenses tonight? Says a little Tunchi.
No, I would not do that. That's generally one of the first rules that I make is only one defense.
Love that, Lil Tunchi. Greatest rapper alive, Lil Wayne. I will take that to the grave. That's a topic for another day, though, by the way. Carter 3, one of the best albums ever. Probably a lot of short stuff. Zeke, Pollard, and Schultz, Andre said in chat. You're picking up what we're putting down and vice versa. Yep. I'm with you. Short stuff, probably not going to air the ball out. Going to be tough for CeeDee Lamb and company to kind of pay off those price tags that are up at the higher end stuff there. Here we go. Could you fade Cousins large field GPP? Big Hurt is asking in chat. Yeah, I think you can. And you're heavy on Dalvin tonight, Keith. So talk to me a little bit more about the Cousins fade and how you would go about that kind of construction.
Yeah, so DraftKings specifically, when you get the points per reception and the yards bonus, I would fade Cousins for Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson can outscore Kirk Cousins raw points. If Cousins doesn't throw the touchdowns, you get Dalvin Cook in the end zone as 2 times as your optimal captain, and Justin Jefferson still makes the optimal lineup by catching 8 balls for 110 yards. I mean, and if that's pretty much all that Cousins does, I mean, he could throw for anywhere up to 299 yards. As long as he doesn't get that 300-yard bonus, I don't think Cousins, you're really going to need Cousins. So I have more Cook and Jefferson, less Cousins.
Okay. Let's see some KJ Osborne talk. Yeah, he's in the mix. Cedric Wilson's also in the mix. You talked about some low guys lower on the depth chart getting those reps. In the preseason,
in practice. In practice, Cooper Rush's number 1 wide receiver is probably Cedric Wilson. I don't know if that translates to the game or not, but I think it's something to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Could you use a guy like Chris Herndon if it lets you fit the studs? Man, Chris Herndon is like the older version of the Robbie Anderson Wheel of Misery. Everyone keeps playing. Chris Herndon is on the Vikings now. I just don't have much of this guy at all. You got any Chris Herndon?
On a normal showdown slate, I would be fine with that second tight end dart throw that you hope just falls in the box. You hope he gets 1 catch for 1 touchdown. That's the play that he is. I don't think you need it on this slate. Blake Jarwin is out there running way more routes. He's only 2,000. I would much rather play 2,000, and salary is not an issue because we have a backup quarterback at minimum quarterback price of 6,000. I don't think you need to go that crazy today.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you as well. I'm looking at Football Reference, and they have Kirk Cousins splits morning, early, afternoon, and late. And I'm assuming late is probably the night games, right? Prime time. 8-16, Kirk Cousins in primetime games here. I mean, throwing the ball a lot, though. I don't know. It's just primetime Kirk Cousins probably helps your Dalvin Cook lean a little bit more with how he just hasn't performed under the lights. Interesting stuff there. All right, looking at some more comments here. 817 guys. Make sure you're checking them in. Best leverage captains and roster builds. If we can kind of make that, put that in a nutshell for Jordan, Keith.
Yeah, so Slate IQ was run with Dak Prescott still in, so we don't actually have leverage. So I don't know, guessing for the most part. Like I don't have actual data in front of me, is what I'm saying. But just looking at like captain ownership, Cook is certainly going to be the highest owned captain, I think. Zeke Elliott at under 10%, I think would make a good deal of sense. Like there's a situation where even if the Cowboys are down 2 scores, that Zeke is still getting the ball. I think he could score two touchdowns even in a blowout loss. So I think Zeke at captain can make some sense.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you there. Can you zero out salary and single entry tonight, Keith?
I would not, even in single entry. I still think you're going to be duplicated, and you're taking away a lot of the expected value when you throw in a duplicated lineup. So I would not zero out salary even in single entry.
Eric Johnson, my man. QQ, is 10K on the table too much for you, Keith?
Hold on, let me see here. All right. Hush. Pollard. Sorry, I'm just trying to plug some in and see.
And he says he has Osborne at his captain too, so that probably helps.
Yeah, that does help. Yeah, I don't think 10K is too much, to be honest.
Hey, 8:18 Eastern here. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I just plugged it. I tried to see if I could leave 10K and feel comfortable with my lineup with Dalvin Cook as my captain. You can do it.
How about Noah Brown? Any interest tonight?
Just not enough pass volume, too far down the depth chart. It's showdown. If you're playing 150 teams, go ahead and throw him in there. But he's not one of my favorite options.
But he probably catches passes from Cooper Rush, though. That's the thing, right?
That is true. In practice reps, they're definitely on the field together. So I just don't think you need that much value tonight is the problem.
I agree. I think on
salary
DK,
super loose with the backup quarterback.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I think it almost becomes more of a raw points thing. I just don't think Brown is in that discussion. We talked about a bunch of guys from 2K to 5K where there's a wide range of outcomes, but hey, anything could happen. I don't have a lot of interest in
I will say, if you've built your lineup and you have 3K left on the table with Cedric Wilson in there, and you want to pivot down to Noah Brown and leave 6K on the table instead, that's perfectly viable. If you think Noah Brown's involved and you're playing in a large field tournament, there's nothing wrong with it.
I agree. He does block a lot of his snaps, and if they're going to be pounding the football, like I think he's a better blocker than Cedric Wilson. So there's an outcome. 8:20 Eastern, guys. We made it. We drug out some Cooper Rush talk for quite some time here. So thank you again for sticking with us. Long day here. A lot of sports going on. It's been a blast. Devin, time to wrap up your day, my man, before you get to take a nap. How did your day go, man? Titans, I need blood pressure medicine after the season they're putting me through. Did you Henry props didn't really hit for you today, though? Sorry about that.
Today was the first week in a while I actually didn't put any parlays down on Henry, so I'm just happy we pulled out that W. That fourth quarter or so interception touchdown, that was just wild to watch.
And Keith, I want to ask you, how did you end up in main slate with the culmination of that Bucks game while we were on here? Man,
Godwin did a good amount of damage, but I didn't get anything real close. My best finish looks like was 74th in the Engage 8, the 3 entry max. So just not quite enough. Too many. Like I had David Johnson in that lineup. I had so many lineups that I had the nut stack with the Tennessee game stack, AJ Brown and Michael Pittman. But then I had a running back like David Johnson or DeAndre Swift was one that really killed me. I had way too much DeAndre Swift.
Gotcha. All right.
Overall profitable day, just didn't quite put anything up there at the top.
Good stuff. Devin, I know you have like a little bit of time to hit the reset button. So what's going on Monday? Look ahead. What do you got going on here at RG? What are you producing?
Yeah, we got the premium lineup HQ showdown show for the premium NFL users on Rotogrinders, and we also have another free pre-lock show for tomorrow's Monday night game, as well as the Grind the Line live sports betting. We'll be going all the way through the game tomorrow night. Should be fun. Giants and Chiefs, I believe.
Yeah, Chiefs desperate times in Kansas City, so should be a good one
against that stalwart Giants defense.
Man, anything can happen, I guess. All right, cool. Well, let's get out of here. Let's hit the reset button and get ready for Monday night. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for tuning in and sticking with us here right here on Roto Grinders. For Keith Eister and, of course, Devin, I'm Justin. Enjoy the rest of your night and good luck.